Hi guys, welcome to my channel. Today we will talk about a loan process, and I have here a lender. And Brian, please introduce yourself and tell what we're here about.
Yeah, Julia, thanks for having me. My name is Bryn. I'm with Guarantee Rate. I'm a mortgage loan officer. I've been doing this for 6 years. I've been with Guarantee Rate for 1 year now, and yeah, happy to answer any questions that you've come across with clients.
Yeah, so definitely, because my work with clients start basically from the consultation, and then if client doesn't have pre-approval, basically we have to get the pre-approval if they would like to buy a house. So
Absolutely.
my first question, probably it will be valuable information for our viewers. Why you need the pre-approval and why realtors asking about it? Like, what's wrong with that?
Yes. So in today's market, it's extremely competitive. As you know, inventory is very, very low. So every house that's on the market, if it shows well, it's going to have 5 to 15 offers every time. So if you don't have that pre-approval letter and say you're going on a Saturday, you love this house and they're saying that the deadline for the offers is at 5 o'clock and it's 4 o'clock. You need to call a lender. You need to get that.
I had that.
It's not a good feeling, right? You love that house. I need to have it, but guess what? 1 hour pre-approval is tough, especially on a Saturday. You know, especially in the summertime, it's nice out. Maybe a lender is spending time with their family. So getting that pre-approval ahead of time is key because you basically had somebody that did their homework on you. They say everything is good, and now you have the confidence, both as a realtor and as a client, to go out and look at houses in that price range, and you can make an offer whenever, and you can do it very, very quickly. So if I find a house at 4 o'clock, that line's at 5, I can make an offer, and within a couple minutes, boom, done. You're not scrambling, trying to figure out who the heck is going to pick up the phone and help me do this last second. So it's all about speed. You know, that's a big part of it.
Right, and what you basically need for pre-approval, what documents?
So the first thing we do is an application. We're going to pull your credit. We can actually do a soft pull or a hard pull depending on your timing. So what I mean by that is a soft pull is better if you're looking for maybe in the longer term. So if you're looking maybe 6 to 12 months, because when you do a hard credit check, it's going to be good for 4 months. So if you don't buy a house in 4 months, we got to repull again. It's another thing against your credit. People don't like to have their credit pulled more than once if they don't have to, because it's 2 to 4 points off, but it's kind of the principle. You just don't want to have it pulled more than once. So we're going to check your credit. We're going to check your income, pay stubs, W-2s if you're a salaried employee or an hourly employee. If you're self-employed, we're going to check your tax returns. That's when it gets more complicated. That's when you don't want to be scrambling at 4 o'clock and you have a deadline at 5 o'clock. It's very, very hard to kind of get that all together. You got to probably call your accountant. It's kind of tough in the heat of things. Then we're going to look at, make sure you have enough for a down payment. You can't just say you're going to have 20% and trust it. You got to check.
But you will be like W-2 form or taxes you will require?
Yes, W-2. We require the last year of W-2 form for if you're a salaried or hourly employee. If you're self-employed, we'll need your tax returns for the last 2 years, actually, typically. If you've been in the industry more than 5 years, we only need the last 1 year. But sometimes if you have a good momentum going for the last 2 years, we'll use the last 2 years actually.
Okay, and also I currently have clients and they are not married, but they live together. They planning on getting married soon. Can the lender use their both income? Can they buy together or no if they're not married?
Yes, you can. So it seems a little crazy because you're not married. So sometimes I joke around and say, do you love this person? Are you sure you want to buy a house with them? But yes, you can do that. There's really no restrictions when it comes to that. It's just more of a commitment between the buyers that they want to go on the loan together.
So bank is okay if there's different names and last names?
That's like the only thing really, because technically you're not married, so you have to have your own bank accounts. You're probably going to pull money from each of your bank accounts. You probably don't have a joint bank account, but you can use whose ever money that you want to use, whether it's the one person, borrower one or borrower two, I guess. You check both credits, you check both incomes. We check both of the bank statements with where the money they're bringing to the table. Not really a big difference if you think about it between married folks and non-married folks, really.
That's amazing, actually, to actually know this. Thank you. And let's talk about some myth, because you just said that you will pull credit score. It's two different ways to do that. And I often hear from clients that, oh, I don't want a pre-approval because I don't want to hard my credit score. What you can tell about it, how you can maybe overcome objection that sometimes you can do the soft check.
Yeah, we can do the soft credit pull, which means that we're only checking one credit bureau. We check TransUnion, and that's good enough to get a pre-approval, actually. Now, it's not going to hurt your credit, though. It's not going to ding you. So that's really good, because if you are kind of maybe on the fence about trying to buy a house, maybe you're not fully committed yet, but you really want to make an offer on a house. I mean, maybe that house is the only one you really like. Then it kind of makes sense. Now, one thing I want to note is that you have to do a hard pull before it goes to underwriting. So say they win the deal, they get the contract, we have to do a hard check at that point.
Okay, as soon as you have contract.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, before it goes to underwriting. We have once you have the contract, before it goes to underwriting, basically around the time of appraisal and inspection, then we'll need a hard credit pull. But at that point, you're pretty much moving forward, because if you like the inspection went well, I'm moving forward with this house, Julia, then we'll do the hard pull. So it's really low risk at that point. The only thing that can really go wrong is that the file falls apart, but that's a really low percentage chance that happens.
So with this soft check, you also giving people a pre-approval document.
Yes. Oh. Yes, you can still do a pre-approval, because we are pulling a credit. We are pulling one credit score. When you do the hard check, you look at 3 bureaus. So it's a little bit different. We take the middle score of the 3. This is just the one TransUnion, but it's technically good enough to still do a pre-approval. Now, one thing I kind of advise people is that, one, your credit could have changed. So maybe we did a pre-approval 2 months ago with a soft credit check, and we did a hard check today. Did your credit check dramatically at that point? Did you miss payments? That usually doesn't happen, but we have to always advise on that. And then the second thing, like I said, is that we do one credit check up front for the soft credit pull, and then we do the 3 for the hard check. Well, because we're doing the middle score of the 3, that can slightly affect what credit score we actually use. So it can slightly affect the interest rate that you qualify for. So there's just a couple things that you have to know about that. But that's really it.
Okay, and let's say another myth that I hear, do not buy car before you buy a house, when you in the process of buying a house. Why?
I agree with that. So
I want a car.
You want a car? Everybody wants a car. You want a car, yeah. You want a boat too? So the reason why you want to buy a car, I highly recommend buying a car or anything of that nature after you buy a house, is because buying a car is a lot easier as far as requirements, credit requirements, income requirements than a house. So if you buy a car during the process, we're going to know that that new debt is on your credit bureau even after we pull credit. So maybe I pulled credit today, you try to be sneaky and buy a car 2 weeks later, we're gonna get a notice that your credit was pulled, and we're gonna have to investigate and figure that out. So we're gonna have to figure out, what is that new monthly payment? Maybe it's a $600, $700 car payment. Now we got to count that against your debt to income. What if you don't qualify for the house now because you have that big payment against you? It can happen. So that's why I don't recommend that. Now when we're done, we don't care. We're done. You get the house, you get the keys, you sign a contract, the house is yours. You can buy the car afterwards. We're not going to look into, oh, you bought this car afterwards. We don't care about that at that point. So,
because I had a client who they want a house, and they just purchased recently a expensive car, and now they are getting a loan, but it's FHA, not conventional. So I want to ask you, what's the difference? FHA, conventional, they are good income people, all of that, but because that dealership run their credit score over and over again without even telling them that that's what happened, now they qualify for FHA. So tell me more about FHA and conventional. Yeah,
and just to be clear, you can technically buy a car before you get the house and still qualify. Something I just don't recommend. One thing I would say, if you absolutely need the car, because sometimes maybe you don't have a car and you need a car to get to work, you need to talk to your lender before and make sure it fits within your budget, right?
But it's actually, if you're buying a car, it can somehow mess a little bit the terms the bank will give you. That's what we're talking about. It
can mess up your debt to income ratio, because those ratios have to be within a certain point to qualify for the loan. if they go too high. So typically you want your debt to income ratio to be below 50%. So maybe you're right at the cusp right now, and then you buy the car. Well, guess what? Now you're over that limit and you can't qualify for the loan. Now, maybe your debt to income ratio is phenomenal. You have a very good budget, you make good money, you really have no debts, and you need that car. You need to talk to your lender before to make sure that payment fits within your budget. It could possibly work. I'm not saying it can't. I just don't recommend you just going buy a car without talking to them first and kind of getting that recommendation. But to answer your question, FHA and conventional are a little bit different. So FHA minimum is 3.5% down. You can only do FHA if you're buying the house to live in the house. Conventional, you can buy the house to live in the house. You can do it as a second home, an investment property. And you can actually do 3% minimum if it's your first time buying a house.
Okay.
If it's not your first time buying a house, you can do 5% minimum for conventional. Also, FHA is always going to have the PMI, the mortgage insurance, regardless if you do 20% or more. My rule of thumb with FHA and conventional, because some people, I'm saying all this and people are at home are probably saying, this is confusing, I don't get when to do which. My rule of thumb is that typically, if your credit score is below 700 or 720, it probably makes more sense to FHA because typically they have better rates and better PMI payments. If you're above, if you have really good credit, 780, 800, conventional usually makes more sense. Usually the PMI is very cheap and you have better interest rates. So that's kind of the break-even point or the break-off point is 700, 720 for the credit score.
Okay, got it. And you also just mentioned about like 3% for that, 5% for that, 3.5%. So we're talking about this percentage. I hear a lot that people like, oh, I need to have 20% to buy a home. Can you tell more who have to have 20% and who the first-time home buyers, do they have to?
Yeah, so 20% is very helpful in this market. As you know, it's very competitive. So if you see a pre-approval over 20%, it's very healthy. That's kind of the benchmark because 20%, as you know, you don't have to pay PMI. If you do less than that, you have to pay PMI per month and then eventually falls off. But by no means do you have to. That is a complete myth. You can do 3%. You know, me personally, I bought my first house 4 years ago. I did 3% down and look at, I got into a house and I got rid of my PMI because the home value increased so much over the last couple of years. So by no means is it a requirement, but it's definitely something that can help you. Obviously, it's going to lower that monthly payment because you're financing less and you don't have the PMI per month.
So you also were in multiple offers bids or no for your
I can't remember. It was 2019, so not as crazy of a market.
Crazy.
You know, this market, I probably would have been in 30, offer competitive offer, situation. But I'm sure I had a couple people that I was competing against, but I got a good deal.
Right.
That was a while ago.
But what about the people who buy next home, second home, or investment? How much minimum? How much? Percentage?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's going to escalate a little bit if you're doing a second home versus an investment property because just from an investor standpoint, it seems like it's more risky.
Right.
If you have a primary, you're probably not going to neglect your house because you live there, you need a house to stay in. If you have a second home or an investment property, that just from an investor standpoint, you can technically let it go and still have a home to live in. Typically, for a second home, you're going to start at about 15% minimum to a down payment. 15 to 20% is the start. It's probably in your best interest to do at least 25% down payment on a second home. The reason why I say that is because the rates get a lot better at 25%.
Oh, okay.
Same with investment properties. I noticed 25 to 30% is kind of that sweet spot to buy an investment property.
Sorry, Bryn, percentage matters if you want better terms. So if you put as much as possible, 50, you get a better deal from bank? If you have 50% down? Yeah,
that's a good question. So in certain cases, it'll matter to a certain point. So I'll give you an example. So for a primary, the sweet spot is typically around 30 to 40%. If you do like 70%, 80%, really does not matter beyond that because you're just lowering your monthly payment each month.
Right.
Are you getting a better rate by putting more down? No, but usually the max is around 40 to 50%. That'll give you the best rate possible for your situation. Now, when it comes to second homes, investment properties, typically the sweet spot, I believe, is around 30 to 40% as well. Anything beyond that really does not matter. Again, it helps because you're lowering that monthly payment, so you're helping your cash flow a little bit. But it's kind of different for every type of property, so it's a good question.
Yeah, okay. And basically, whatever we're talking here about, it can vary, depends of, right, the personal buyer situation, right? Every case is different, correct?
Correct. Yes.
You can't just summarize and say, hey, this is the way it's always goes.
Yes. And sometimes we can even broker out programs. So at Guarantee Rate, we do loan programs within our company, but we can also broker out to certain companies. And these companies have their own rules and guidelines. So for example, maybe this company is offering the best rate at 30% down compared to 20%.
Okay. And you comparing? By
Yes.
looking at the
Yes.
better.
I would let the buyer know that, hey, maybe it's in your best interest to do 30% down instead of doing 40%. I know you want to put a lot down. Maybe it's in your best interest to do 30%. I always let the buyers know those options.
Good. And also, I think last question will be, I see, all of those guarantee rates, other names. Also, like there's a Chase, Bank of America. So can I go I'm a buyer. Can I go just to my bank, to Chase, and just get whatever they tell me? Or is it smart to get a couple opinions, and why? What's different between you and the Chase, let's say?
So first off, you can do whatever you want, right? You can go to whatever bank you want.
Good.
You're free to do so. Now, just to let you know my background, I've been doing this 6 years. 5 years I've been at Chase. So I kind of understand the dynamic between how clients, realtors think about certain banks versus certain lenders. So when I was at Chase, a lot of people did not like or trust Chase. I hate to say it. They're a great company as a whole, but as far as lending, they were not considered the most reliable. So there was a certain past experiences that realtors have gone through, and they just had a bad taste in their mouth, and they're like, I'm sorry, you can be the best loan officer ever, I just don't want to work at Chase because I had a bad experience. And that's something I really can't blame them for, and I can't really overcome. Now, Guarantee Rate, we've been the top lender in the Chicagoland area as far as market share for the last couple of years. So realtors and clients really trust us from a trust standpoint. And that's huge in this market, right? Because you have all these offers coming in, and you don't want to waste your time, right? You have 20 offers. All these can possibly close, right? So you want to pick the one that you think is going to be the most likely is going to close, right? And it's going to be best for your client. So, that's why Guarantee Rate is such a good option for you, because you probably have worked with us in the past and had good experiences. So when you see those multiple offers come through, you have Chase, you have Fairway, you have Cross Country, some no-name lenders from online, right? What about Rocket Mortgage, right? Do you like Rocket Mortgage? Most people don't, because they can't get a hold of their lenders. So when they see those, when they're in that multiple bid situation, they're going to choose the lender that they trust the most. So typically they're going to choose a company like Guarantee Rate, because they know that, okay, if I go with these people, my clients are going to close, it's going to be a smooth transaction, and that's what I want as a lender or as a realtor from a realtor standpoint.
But do you think it makes sense to go to couple lenders and hear opinion? Is that different lender will tell you something different?
So one thing I would say is you definitely want to work with the lender that you feel the most comfortable with. So a lot of us can offer very, very similar rates. Nobody's offering a crazy deal compared to one another.
Okay, so there's a myth too, because sometimes 5.5. Why? On today's market?
Yes, so that's a great question. So sometimes if you check online, you Google what are rates today.
Right, that's what let's talk about.
5.5%. Wow, great rate. Why are they offering, why is Guarantee Rate offering me 6.7? Well, if you look at the fine print, they'll usually be offering you that interest rate with points. So it says 1 point or 2 points.
So you're paying for this, was that knowing?
Well, they're trying to be sneaky about it, right? Because it's fine print. It's very, very small at the bottom of your screen.
So there is.
So they're not lying to you. They're telling you the truth, but you don't know that as a consumer. They're trying to grab your attention and say, look at this rate. It's so amazing, right? So the truth is, I'm gonna debunk this truth for you, or I'm going to debunk this myth for you, is that is a rate you can get. However, you have to pay more in closing costs. So 1 point equals 1% of your loan amount. So let's say you're financing $400,000 and they're quoting you a rate of 5.5 with two points. That means you have to pay $8,000 extra in closing costs that you wouldn't have paid before just to get that interest rate. Now, is that a good option to go with in this market? To be honest, I don't think so, because I think that rates are at a high point right now. I think they'll drop in the next 6 to 18 months. So I think rates will eventually get to 5.5, maybe in the next couple of years. So why not? I think you're better off waiting for that period than pay $8,000 front, where you probably have to have that loan for maybe 10 years to make sure you make up your money. Because you think about it, you're putting $8,000 extra into a loan as cost, and then you have to wait a certain period to make up that money, because you're gonna have a lower monthly payment every time. and you got to figure out what they call a break-even point. So it's probably going to take you maybe 7 to 10 years. Otherwise, if you refinance before 7, 10 years, you actually lost money doing it that way.
Wow.
So that's something that it's a huge tip. I actually made a video about that this week.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it's a good topic. It's a hot topic too.
Great. Thank you. I will put all your information down below. And yeah, I think that's it for today.
Awesome.
If we will have some attention and likes, we definitely will do a part 2. And if you have any questions to Bryn, feel free to either shoot it in the comments section down below. Yeah, thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next video.
See you guys. Thank you.